accepted.
The only constant in life is change. These words were said by Heraclitus, a Greek philosopher, about 2,500 years ago. So, what does it really mean? It reflects importance of adaptability and openness to new experiences throughout our whole lives. Also, it means that nothing in our lives is certain. The change is always happening. This means that our life has a dynamic nature. We have to evolve, we have to adapt. We have to embrace uncertainty in order to be able to live through it. Who am I to tell you about this? My name is Jakub Paczkowski. Currently, I'm Director of Engineering for Spoton. Before being director, I was Python developer for 12 years. And throughout my career, I experienced a lot of change, a lot of chaos that was coming from very different sources. The most significant ones are layoffs, changes on the market, and companies shifting their priorities. They all are introducing very chaotic environments. And I'm here today with you to share my learnings with you and share some tools how to handle these uncertain times in our lives. Doesn't matter if private or work-related. Let's start with defining what chaos really is. In very common words, is disorder or confusion. You have no idea what's going on. You have absolutely no idea what to do next in order to achieve anything, and you basically are clueless to what happened so far. From more formal perspective, from chaos theory, chaos is behavior of certain systems that are very sensitive to input data. This effect is called popularly butterfly effect. So it means that sometimes very slight change of input can generate huge difference in output of what we are doing and how our lives are looking. Important to remember that chaos doesn't mean randomness. In chaos, there are some rules. These rules are not something that we know about, or this is something that we have to still discover. We just cannot predict chaotic systems. However, there are rules guiding them. And in our very specific context of software development, this may show us lack of stable information or changing information, changing priorities from the company side, missing or wrong processes or processes that no longer make sense in our current environment. From very development side, it may be conflicting code changes that no one really wants to solve, or non-deterministic unit tests that are distracting us. Non-deterministic tests are forcing us to switch context, and this is something that, as developers, and not only developers, we hate, literally hate. So the first example about chaos and chaotic system is weather forecast. As we all know, weather depends on quite a few factors. Mostly it's going to be temperature, pressure, and humidity. And based on that information and some other extra data, we are able to predict weather for the next day, 2 days, 3 days, something around that. Predicting weather for the next week or two is almost impossible. If you look at the weather forecast for next Wednesday, it will be probably not true a week from now. Why? Because weather is such a complex system that given inputs and given our models, we cannot just predict everything that is gonna be happening. Another great example of chaotic system is stock market or any other financial market. In theory, there are only two factors for financial markets. That's demand and supply. They are shaping price of any good. However, does it always mean that we can predict a price? We all know that suddenly humanity will not stop eating apples or will start eating twice as apples as we do right now. There is a very notable example of that from October 1987, which is known as Black Monday. This was a day that caused international crash of the stock markets around the world. It started in Hong Kong, and from there it reached every country. Country that was affected the least was Austria, where stock market went down by 11.4%, and the market that was hit the biggest, was obviously Hong Kong, which crashed by 45.8%. And now there is a mystery. Why did it happen? No one really knows why. There are some assumptions that it may have been a bug in trading software, but no one can really prove it. It's not officially confirmed. The second example from financial markets is something much closer to our times. It's Dogecoin price, 28th January 2021, just before, during, and after Elon Musk tweeted about it. As you see, the prediction is completely off from actually happened. One tweet from one person actually changed the whole market. And we are here not to talk about weather or financial markets. We are here to talk about software development. Let's take example from our very environment that probably most of us know or have seen or have heard about. Let's say we are working on a distributed system that consists of several services, and these services communicate with each other in various ways. This can be REST API, this can be RabbitMQ, and so on. Now imagine that someone pushed a small code change to one of these services, and this code change had a bug that until very certain conditions that are not easily found, were putting messages on the RabbitMQ queue indefinitely. Eventually, RabbitMQ will get stuck because there was no consumer for these messages, or there was not enough consumers for these messages, so RabbitMQ will go down. After RabbitMQ goes down, any service that depends on it goes down as well. And in very late stage, it may be the complete system that goes down. Imagine that you are a software as a service company. This puts you out of the business for a couple of hours. Why? Because of one subtle change that happened in the code base. So far, I was talking only about chaos and chaotic systems. But how it is really related to change? As I mentioned in the very beginning, the change is our only constant in life. Change is precursor to chaos. It's not always precursor to chaos because smaller change reduces risk of getting in the chaotic situation. Bigger change, of course, increases that risk, but it doesn't mean that after any change there will be chaos. Both of these terms means that there is deviation from the status quo. Like perfectly running software system can run almost indefinitely if you don't change it, and if there is no external change to the system like crashing server. However, introducing any change may change everything for that system. From the other side, once you get to the chaotic state, what happens after you leave it? You can actually see long-term change that is much more positive for you, for your team, for your project, than staying in the old way of doing things. You may see improved processes, you may see improved software, you may see teams that are reorganized. Of course, all these changes may extend chaos, but eventually they should bring it down, or they should kill the project. So, what's the cost of getting to the chaotic system and not managing it effectively? There are two groups of costs. The first one that is quantifiable is tangible costs. We can calculate how much did it cost to stay in that situation. And there are intangible costs that not everyone will notice, not everyone will see, but eventually they will be able to be calculated in terms of finance or any other output. So tangible costs, this is project delays. Of course, if you don't know what you are doing, you will not do it right. That's as simple as that. This will mean prolonging timelines or not preparing for the future enough to design your software good enough. Cost overruns. If you are using external software that is pricey during a project that you are working on, if you are in chaotic environment, you may have a need to use this expensive software much longer than you would expect. This increases cost of the whole project, and it may affect risk of failure of the whole project. Third point is reduced quality. If you don't know what you are doing and what is gonna be next and why you are doing what you are doing, the quality of the software will suffer. There will be more bugs, they will be more significant, and from developer's perspective, you will switch context much more than you would have in a stable environment, because you would have to jump from one problem to another, and you wouldn't have time to actually fix any of them in a manner that would be good for everyone. These are tangible costs that may lead to very final cost, the whole project failure. If the whole project is cancelled, then is the ultimate cost of wasting all time, money, resources that were spent on it. The intangible costs are much more subtle, yet not less important. The first of them may be lowered team morale. If team doesn't know what they are doing, they will not feel confident in what they are doing, and therefore you are not going to work as effectively as you can. All of us know the feeling of joy when we actually pick up some task and start working on it, because we know why, we know how, and we know all the context about it, and it's as simple as implementing it. If you don't know this information, your morale will suffer. Second cost is erosion of trust. In team environment, you have to trust your peers. You have to trust your colleague that is sitting next to you, that this person is doing the right thing. You need to trust your leader that they are also leading the company and the project in the right direction. So if this trust is diminishing, this is actually a very hurtful situation for everyone, and also it's very hard to recover from that situation. Last but not least is missed learning opportunities. As engineers, we like to learn new stuff. However, in chaotic situation, we don't really have time to do it because we are jumping from one fire to another. And it's crucial in terms of chaos management to have time for learning in your past mistakes. I will tell about this a little more later, but if you are not learning on a daily basis, if you are not learning on your mistakes, this is a huge mistake that will cost a lot in the future. Let me tell you a couple of words about how to navigate through the chaotic storm. Let's say that someone made a decision to change the project that you are working on very significantly. What now? How to deal with that situation? Let's start before someone made this decision. As developers, we can prepare at least to some changes that we may face in our lives. We may prepare ourselves to some of the changes. If we just sit and think about the environment we are working in, if we just sit and calmly think about what may be happening in the next 3 to 6 months, we will be so much better prepared if something from the topics that we thought about happens. Then we will be 2 steps ahead of anyone else that didn't think about this. Second, very important thing to remember about chaotic times is communication. We, as humans, have to learn to communicate better constantly. It's not only about developers communicating, which is usually which we are perceived as people that don't communicate very well, but it applies to everyone. Every single person has to learn to communicate for all their lives to make the communication concise, precise, and clear to everyone else. The next point is planning. You need to be flexible in planning. I think that most of you have adopted some form of agile methodology in your work. I'm not telling you to use Scrum or Kanban. Absolutely not. I'm telling you to prepare your processes to be flexible more than they are right now in order to accommodate change that may be happening. Or if the change already happened, to adjust your processes to make sure that you can work around it. I will talk a little more about the planning later as well. You need also to learn to prioritize tasks from the most important ones to the least important. There is no point in working on things that are not going to bring you out of chaos. This is your most important goal, bring you out of chaos. Of course, it will take time, but it needs very solid prioritization. You need to remember that you are not alone in it. You have your team, you have your manager, you have your lead, you have product people that are working with you towards the same goal. And this is something you cannot forget. You need to keep trust towards these people in order to make your work efficient. As already mentioned, learning is extremely important. You need to learn from your past in order to make the future better. Last but not least, it's probably the most important point during this slide, it's focus on people. Because fact that you are coding on a computer doesn't mean that you are not working with people. You are working with people all the time, and you need to communicate, you need to manage other people all the time. You need to really focus on them as a developer, as leader, as anyone. As I said, implementing agile processes is very important in times of change, especially big change, chaotic change, because this is the way, one of the ways that will allow you to get out of the chaos and stabilize your processes and make them much more concrete than during the chaotic times. Of course, that means iterative development. If you didn't implement it yet, you may be forced to do it. But absolutely, this is one of the most important parts of implementing agile methodologies. Be open to change of requirements. Be open to change of your process at all. Of course, as mentioned before, you need to prioritize your backlog to make sure that work you are doing is the most important work that you can be doing right now. Don't focus on anything that is not bringing you closer to leaving the chaotic state. Also, as I mentioned, the human factor is the most important thing. How to work with other people the best way, especially in very uncertain times that generate a lot of stress, that generate a lot of anger, it's by working with their emotions and your emotions as well. You need to understand and to manage emotions, By managing emotions, of course, I don't mean to manipulate other people, but to make sure that you understand that they also may be stressed, that may be upset, or anything else. If two people are stressed and they are arguing about something, it's so easy to start a fire and start a huge fight between them if you are not careful enough. And chaos inflicts stress and feeling of not knowing what to do. Third point here is clear communication. I mentioned this before, I will mention it more as well. But you need to learn to communicate better. Better doesn't mean more. More communication without improving the quality will only introduce noise in already chaotic system, so the chaos will be even bigger. If you improve communication and lower its amount, is the best case, because this will allow everyone to actually focus on doing what to have to do in order to get out of the chaotic situation. Last but not least, again, building trust. If you are committing to something, you have to deliver your commitment. If you are promising something, you have to deliver your promise. Of course, in such dynamic and unstable environment, it's not always possible. This is where communication comes into play. This is where you need to proactively communicate in order to build trust towards your person. This way, your colleagues and your leaders will know that if you say something, it will be done, or that you will raise a flag early enough to somehow adapt to what you just discovered. So, to give you some of the tools that I'm using when I'm facing change that are much more concrete, let's start with finding your North Star. You should sit for a while, at least a while, and think about what does it mean for me to leave the chaotic state. And for every person, it will probably mean something different, but every person should have something like that in their heads. For developers, it will be probably having structured process from development to planning the work to planning what needs to be done. From leadership side, it will be just knowing that we are going into direction that we believe that is the best direction for us. And you have to remember to keep reminding this North Star for yourself every day, because otherwise, how you will end up is every day thinking about how bad it is right now that I'm in so big chaos. If you don't remember about the North Star, you will just be forced to think about negative things, and this is not going to end up well. After you have the North Star, you need to think about the communication. Regular sync-ups with your peers are a very good way to make sure that everyone knows their North Star, that everyone knows where we are going to. Of course, to repeat again, more communication, it may be noise. So you need to balance it out. It will not be the first attempt that you try to set it up that you will succeed. You will have to look in the past and learn from what you've been doing, what worked out well, what is not working well, and adapt to the situation. As leaders, we have to give our teams time and room to decompress and distress. I'm not saying that our teams should be given like a free day every week because they need to decompress. What I'm saying is set up an integration event, go together to a conference, basically do something together with your team, but that will allow them to forget about the chaos, about what they are doing for a while. Also, this will help with mental health. Currently, there is a lot of studies that times we are living in right now are very heavy on our mental health. There is a lot of problems. There is a lot of people openly talking about this. And as human beings, we need to care for each other to make sure that our mental health is kept as good as possible. It can be done in various ways, starting from team bonding events through going to yoga classes, meditation, whatever. What happens after all? Let's say that chaotic times started 3 months ago. We have seen our North Star, now we are reaching it. What's the actual outcome of the chaotic situation that we have faced? So it may end up as being something good for you personal, for the project, for the company, because chaos is catalyst for innovation. Like, if you don't know what is the right move to do, it means that you are going to try a lot of moves and you will learn something innovative, something new about how to handle certain situations. It's also opportunity for growth. People that will not be shy to try new things, people that will actively try to fix the chaos and implement some processes, see the patterns, will have a head start after it ends. They will be recognized, and actually it will be very good for their growth. You will learn much better how to communicate. You will be much better communicator. This is positive side in itself. But from the other side, chaos will show you your weaknesses and your ability to make decisions. This is not always something simple, but definitely it's something that we need to think about and care about. It will also enable evolution. As I said in the very beginning, the only constant in our lives is change. So we have to adapt, we have to evolve all the time in order to make our future better. Last point on this slide is that chaos fosters a learning culture. You will learn how to learn efficiently. You will learn how to learn as quickly as possible. So fact that you were struggling for last 6 months in learning what's important and what's not doesn't mean that it's all going to trash after you have already structured processes. You will still know how to learn much quicker and much better. This gives you a head start for the future as well. As a conclusion, road ahead of us is not going to be straight. We are always going to see change. We are going to see something that distracts us. We are going to see something that we don't really like. As human beings, as developers, we like structured processes. We like to know what to do. We know to like how to operate. But you will start embracing this change and discomfort, and this will allow you to get to be a better person. Actually, a lot of very successful people, entrepreneurs, other sportsmen, and other successful people say that embracing discomfort helped them to actually achieve great things. Think about it. I already mentioned learning a lot of times during this presentation, and this is key point here. You need to learn. Also, you will start valuing chaos. Once you see the positive sides of leaving chaotic situation, you will start valuing it. You will learn so much more. You will be so much more resilient to stress and to unexpected situations. It will help in the future. Also, as a leaders, you will change and you will definitely focus much more on people rather than on processes or products or money. You will have to make sure to work with people in order to get out of the chaos zone. So, after all, chaotic situation may be very beneficial for any of us, and it may be beneficial for the company as well. We all need to remember how to manage it and how to get out of it in a way that benefits everyone the most. This is it from my side. Thank you. Do you have any questions? No.
Dealing with this chaos and some more specific situation description or something like that?
Yeah.
Because it was very generic what you said.
Yeah, so the question is, can I give some examples of how to deal with chaos in more precise, more concrete way? The example that I actually can give you is from very recent year. Basically, we were going through a lot of changes as a company, as Spot-On, and this required restructuring teams a couple of times. And basically, it was not a very smooth process, yet keeping constant feedback loops with everyone involved. As manager right now, I'm not coding anymore, and I'm also working with other people to make sure that our future is quite structured. But being close to developers, answering their needs, like syncing up with them, being very open to feedback and being very open to questions, that was the key to actually go through these transformations. Because, yeah, they incurred a lot of chaos, a lot of instability, and it was very hard to predict how it will end up. Sure.
Communication. You said that it is more important to make communication efficient than communicate more. Maybe you could tell more about it.
Yep, of course. So the question is, what's the difference or how to make communication more efficient rather than doing more of it? Basically, you have to know what you want to say in a way that is shortest as possible, but you have to make sure that other person understood you. So, for example, instead of having 3 hours planning meeting, that after 40 minutes everyone will lose focus on, you have to know how do you want to drive this meeting. So instead of 3 hours, it should be 1 hour, but you should get prepared to it much better offline of this time. This is the first examples that comes to my head. I've been part of the 5-hour planning meeting. This is not fun, and it was only because people get to this meeting unprepared. By the way, it was not in Spot-On. And we are able to cut this time down to 1.5 hours for pretty big teams. So you need to prepare, you need to know what you want to say, what do you want to achieve with your communication. If you just get to a meeting and start discussing random things, then this generates noise.
Checkpoint may be just playing poker, which shows that people what people think about complexity and so on. Then what do you think about it?
Yep, so the question is, shouldn't we introduce some checkpoints in order to make sure that other people understand us? I agree. There should be some way of verification that other person understood us as we intended to. The example that you've given is planning meeting, and that planning poker is a way to show if everyone understands each another. I absolutely agree. This shows if everyone understands each other person. However, there are multiple meetings and multiple sync-ups that don't have luxury of having structured tool like planning poker, and then this is something that you need to learn how to ask question after you said something in order to verify that person you are speaking with understood it. If it's the whole team, it's much harder. However, it's doable. Okay, I guess we don't have any other questions, so thank you once again, and see you downstairs.